Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is taking stock, giving ourselves the opportunity to step back and take a look at our lives, see what's serving us, see what isn't, giving ourselves the opportunity to choose the direction of our lives. So, good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. Before we get started with talking about taking stock, let's take a minute or two to get present. So, let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, taking stock. Oftentimes we go along to get along, right? Like we just keep moving through the daily routines. We keep doing the things we do. And what happens is, in so many cases, we kind of go numb and unconscious to life and to the vast possibilities that life offers us. And there's a comfort, there's a comfort in familiarity, there's a comfort in the routine, right? It makes it so that things are somewhat predictable. You know, we can maneuver within the channels that our lives follow. But it's like a river, you know, where as a river runs through a, a certain area, it gets more deeply entrenched, right? It's creating a deeper channel, a deeper pattern. Good morning. Good morning. Is that Dido? Welcome. I hope so. It's so good to have you here with us. I miss you. Anyway, what we want to be looking at is whether the flow of the river that we are. Hi, Dido. So good to have you here with us. Whether the flow of this river is actually serving us, and maybe we want to be able to create some new tributaries. And it's challenging to do that, but when we give ourselves opportunity, when we create a structured opportunity to look, to actually step back and assess, to step back and evaluate and say, is this behavior serving me? Is this relationship serving me, and serving me in my highest intentions? I don't mean just in a self-serving superficial way, but I mean serving my highest intentions. Um, and if it isn't, what might I be able to shift in that regard? What might I be able to eliminate or minimize in my life, and that leaves room for me to expand and encourage other parts of my life, things, behaviors, relationships, patterns. And oftentimes we don't take that action to step back, to observe ourselves, and to do so with a compassionate but honest eye, to step back and say, wow, okay, this is how I'm proceeding in my life. Is that going to produce for me the results, the intentions that I have for myself? Am I actually moving in the direction of my intentions, or am I sidelining myself in one way or another? So at the root of this really is a willingness to dare to dream. And I don't even mean grand dreams necessarily, but a willingness to entertain the possibility that our lives can be what we want them to be, what we dream of them being, what we desire them to be, that our lives can be richer, perhaps, in experience or stimulation or creativity, or I can't, and I'm as prey to this as the next person, that there are things that I have on my list of things I want to do, but I haven't necessarily taken action toward those things. I haven't necessarily been deliberate about creating this space for those things in my life. And as I become more aware of that, then there's more of a drive to do that. But I have had clients who have said, I really, really want to get into being more creative. I want to do my painting. I want to do my artwork. I want to do my writing, but they don't make time for it. And so I think what we get to do is listen more keenly to our desires, like I want to be doing something more creative, or I want to have more time for reading, or I want to get more exercise. So if we have these wants, that we can allow ourselves to actually be listening to, like not just letting them fly by the radar, but allowing ourselves to notice as these desires surface. They're surfacing for a reason. They're surfacing because they are part of our deeper expression. Those desires are coming from our heart and soul. I'm not talking about a desire for chocolate cake, although that could also be coming from our soul, but the desires for growth and expansion. If we listen, if we have a willingness to pay attention, if we have a willingness to honor those desires, what happens is that the self that is generating those things, the maybe our higher selves, maybe our more deeply authentic self, the self that's generating those desires, then start speaking more and becomes a more active influence in our lives. And when we allow that, our lives become a more authentic expression. They tend to flow more smoothly. And we tend to feel a greater sense of fulfillment and a greater sense of peace and ease in life as we listen to those callings. So in this notion of taking stock, we get to look at, well, what in my life is actually gratifying? What in my life is fulfilling? What in my life detracts from me? What is sucking my energy? What is enlivening me? And as we take stock of these things, then we can start choosing. There are always going to be some things in life that we need to do that we're not overjoyed about doing. The thing is, even in those situations, when there are things that need to be done, when we grant ourselves the gift of doing the things that we love and the things that are calling to us, the things that need doing don't feel like such a burden. We can move through them without feeling the deep oppression that we might otherwise feel. So many of us live lives feeling oppressed by all our obligations and responsibilities. And the thing is, we often don't take the time to step back and assess those obligations and responsibilities to determine whether they're real or not, whether we are bound to them in the way that we often feel ourselves to be. Like our to-dos, so many of our to-dos don't need to be done. There are things that we impose on ourselves, and then we impose a great urgency around those things, and then we feel oppressed and resentful about those things that we have chosen to do. So part of this reckoning or taking stock is looking at our lives and determining what kind, making choices, actually choosing our lives, choosing to do the things we do rather than feeling like we are doing things out of obligation. And there are some things, there are obligatory things that we have to do sometimes, and we get to choose that we're doing it. The have to part is part of our construct. And when we can free ourselves to recognize that, in fact, I'm choosing to do this because if I don't, the consequences are so extreme that it makes doing it better than not doing it, right? Like that we rise to ownership of the things that need doing. And we also get to look at whether those things that need doing really need doing, because there are lots of things that we can just eliminate from our list and give ourselves space with. I know I've shared this example before, but for example, I'm not a big social media person. This conversation, this morning engagement with you is pretty much my only social media engagement, and I do it because it's enriching to me and hopefully to you. But social media stuff is not my thing, or has not been. Maybe at some point it will be, but I've not felt inspired to really engage in social media. However, for a long time, I had on my to-do list things that would be cultivating a social media presence. And I felt really oppressed by that list, by that obligation and responsibility that I was putting on myself, because people told me, well, that's how you build your business. You need to have a social media presence. You need to be on Facebook and this, that, and the other thing. And it just was repugnant to me. I just had no interest. And so finally, I took stock and I said, okay, here's this thing. It's been looming, because there was this sense of overwhelm and also a sense of failure, because I hadn't done this thing that I should be doing, should in big air quotes. And so finally I took stock and I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm not, I haven't done it yet. I'm not doing it. When I removed that, when I took stock and I removed that from my list of to-dos or have-tos or should-dos or whatever, it was a huge relief, so much so that I'm still talking about it. I mean, it was a big relief. And I'm fine not doing that. My business is fine not doing that. And again, maybe there will be an occasion in the future where I am where I'm engaged in something where social media is fun and inspiring. But at this point, it's not a necessity for me. And there's a huge amount of freedom by removing that from my field, even from my list of things to do, or obligations, responsibilities. Now, there are lots of things like that in our lives that we can just eliminate, or we can restructure. Maybe it's doing the dishes. Maybe you get to, instead, maybe the dishes piling up becomes an overwhelm. So maybe you get to institute a thing where you wash the dishes as you use them, or maybe washing the dishes as you use them is overwhelming. So maybe you arrange to do it once a day, or like there are so many things in our lives, and that's super, super mundane, but there's so many things in our lives that we can moderate and modify and even eliminate, or so that we have room to embrace the things that really are life affirming and life giving. And that when we honor that for ourselves, we create a greater flow. We create a greater movement of vitality in our lives. And we also can be making space for the things that really count, the things that matter, the things that we really want to put our energy toward. And I know that even considering that can be threatening. Yesterday, we were talking about new perspectives and change of scene, creating like a renewal of spirit. And what we're talking about here pretty consistently in these morning conversations is taking accountability for our lives as something that we create, not as something that we survive, not as something that we just plod through. And I can tell you that I have gone through periods in my life where it was really just about, I'm just going to trudge through this and I just want to get it over with. And, many, many days is just like, just want to get through this day. And didn't have the resourcefulness, I guess, to pull my head up and look at the opportunities. And so that's where this encouragement comes from. I didn't have that kind of encouragement. I don't think I even knew at that point that it was possible for life to be something else. And the truth is that in any moment, we can stand back, take stock, make new choices, embrace our power, embrace our dreams. We get to create this. And I see how malleable reality is, our experience of reality. I see how malleable our life experience is through the work that I do in the core connection work, because I over and over and over again have clients showing up in massive distress about something, about a relationship, about money, about their well-being, about their self-worth, about relationships, about life itself. And I see in the space of 90-minute session a radical transformation of spirit. People will come in devastated, in tears, and leave feeling empowered. Now that shows me that our reality can shift on a dime, that we have the ability to completely transform our experience of life from 1 minute to the next, literally, where in one moment the world's coming to an end, in the next moment it's a glorious place to be. And so if that's true, if it's true that we can make this shift, like that we have the ability, maybe we can't source it ourselves so easily sometimes, but just the fact that this kind of transition can occur so quickly, so radically, makes me know that our experience of life is between our ears in so many ways, or in our bodies, that the reality that we experience is a function of our conceptualization. It's a function of the context from which we perceive. And that context can be changed. It's not immutable. And I mean, it's not immutable. So even in the worst of circumstances, even when we feel like the world is closing in, like our options are limited, the truth of the matter is that this is a function of our perception. And if we can recognize that there are other ways to see things, to be perceiving things, that the reality that we are experiencing is very subjective, and that we can shift perspective, even knowing that possibility can be freeing, can be liberating, can offer us hope. And so this is really like this taking stock thing. It would also be valuable to be taking stock of the stories we tell ourselves, because the stories we're telling ourselves are spells. They are casting a spell. They are creating a reality. They are creating a context through which we then experience the world. And there are a multitude of contexts. There is an unlimited number of contexts. And even the slightest shift can have a profoundly dramatic impact on the trajectory of our lives. So taking stock, listening to the stories that we're telling ourselves and questioning them with curiosity and compassion, not with judgment, opens new vistas of opportunity and possibility and expression for us. And so I invite us all to remember to just step back and say, is this the way I want to be creating my life? How can I generate something in my life that is going to feel even more joyful, even more fulfilling, even richer, even more true? And so that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. I invite you to please like, follow, share Enlightened World Network and their YouTube channel as well as mine. The links are in the chat. It is always and ever a wonderful privilege and pleasure to spend this time with you. And I'm ever so grateful. So until next time.